Hi guys, I'm Dr. Jenny White, a dentist in Sarasota, Florida, and her fearless patient Susan with our podcast, Open Wide, Unfiltered Opinions between a dentist and her patient. Over the past 25 years or so, I've been sitting in a little room talking to myself all day, and I've gained a lot of wisdom through that process, which I want to share with you. We hope our podcast casts optimism and fearlessness to you so you can rise to the top, stay at the top, and dream bigger than you've ever imagined.
We're so excited about our podcast today. Our guest is Jeri Sedlar. Jeri is an internationally recognized author, speaker, and lecturer on the topic of retirement. She's the co-author of the highly acclaimed book, Don't Retire, Rewire, 5 Steps to Fulfilling Work That Fuels Your Passion, Suits Your Personality, and Fills Your Pocket, and it's in its 3rd edition. For over 25 years, Jeri has been researching individuals on the pleasure, pain, and possibilities associated with an aging society. She has been rewiring people from across the globe, from Dubai to Des Moines, and has emerged as one of the country's leading thought leaders on the new way to retirement, or as she calls it, rewirement. Her goal is to help people find new purpose, new passions, new work, new volunteer opportunities that produce healthy and productive outcomes. Jeri is the founder, editor-at-large of Working Woman magazine, where she worked on key issues including work-life balance, flex time, glass ceiling, and female entrepreneurship. She was a partner in an executive search firm that specialized in the placement of senior executives in the consumer packaged goods industry. She is frequently a media and podcast guest, and she calls people her passion. And Jeri, I don't think you're going to have to come back for the next 9 podcasts because we have like so many questions for you. It's not even funny.
Yeah, there's too much to do here. There's too much.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's start
cute.
with how did the book come about? Like, what was the genesis of the book?
Okay, so I'll be as brief as possible here, but I want to go back in time a little bit to the late 1990s. And it was at the end, kind of going through that .com era, which I know it seems kind of foreign now, but people were really talking about retirement. And they would say, what's your number? And it wasn't just the age number, but it was also the net worth number. And people were just talking so much about retirement. And I don't think they really had any idea what retirement was going to be about. I can't say that I totally did at that time either, but what hit me was a client. That's when I was a headhunter, an executive recruiter, and a client called, and he was 59. And he said, I'm going to retire. I am so excited about this. Do you know if there are going to be any part-time jobs, though? Senior executives that might come through recruiting. And I thought, now, wait a minute here. He's excited about this, but he's asking me a pretty big question. And I said, no, but why are you asking this? And he said, it's finally hit me. I have been focusing so much on what I'm giving up, the crazy clients, the demands, the budgets, all of the almost what we would call maybe the negative side that people get in their mind, but it's the reality of work. And he said, the other morning, I walked into my office, I looked around, I sat down, he said, I can't believe it, but this is where I get my attaboys. Or for all of us as women, our atta girls. And he said, I never had thought about all of the positive things I get from work that I'm going to be leaving here. And then he went on to say, I know my wife loves me, but I guarantee she is not going to tell me every day how terrific I am. She's not going to give me the kudos I want. And he said, so all of a sudden I realized I'm going to call Jeri and say, are there going to be any part-time senior jobs? That was really the nugget that got me thinking that it isn't just about the financial and the investment and the saving and the money. It was also, what are you going to do? But more importantly, how are you going to feel?
Yeah.
And how big is this identity of ours? Because let's face it, what do people say when you meet them? Hi, what do you do?
Yeah.
That's not going to go away. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of the impetus and the catalyst for beginning some research.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I know you
Go
got
ahead. We have 74 questions.
Okay, go.
Well, I was just thinking, that it's brilliant that you took that nugget and then you dove into the research to create what you've created. I was thinking to myself, our Social Security system was set up around 1935.
Correct.
We've had that retire at 65 Since 1935, we've been doing that. Like, how old? Life is so different.
Right. And the law. Well,
And we keep following those social, I don't know what, not requirements, not norms, maybe social norms or social.
let's face it, there are things that are put into place, but I want to take it even back further because I would say to audiences I travel around, with the country and that, and globally, I usually don't ask that question, but I'll say, do you know where retirement came from? Audiences, 200, 250, 300. No hands get raised. And I go, we are saving for something. We don't even know where it came from, what it is. It goes back to Otto von Bismarck.
Really?
Exactly. It
Well,
goes
what-
back to
yeah.
the 30s because at that time they wanted to get the older worker out of the workforce, and he plucked the age of 65. That's where it really came from. And then we're coming off here in the United States under FDR, under all, the Depression and what's going on. He wants to create really what we're going to call kind of that safety net. And during those years, too, American Express was the very first company that put in a pension plan. So when you think about it, there's the beginning of your three-legged stool concept. So when FDR creates this, because you're 25% of people, unemployed in that, he puts this into place, and he also takes the age of 65. So when you think it's a man-made idea, but the concept, what cracks me up, is that the first individual to receive her check was a woman up in New Hampshire. It was in 1940 by the time the system, and she lived to be 100.
Oh, my.
So right there, from an actuarial standpoint, people should have said, whoa, is this going to work?
Right.
Well, now you see what's happening. Look at some of the countries. France comes to mind, trying to raise some of the retirement ages. Well, there's a lot of pushback. So there's not just the age of 65, and now we've got this gift of longevity, but it's people, we have this age too because people were physically working physically.
Yeah.
The computer does the heavy lifting now. AI is going to really do the lifting. So your body was burned out.
Yeah.
Now it's different. So you're right. There's big longevity questions. And a lot of people don't even like the word retirement.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the crux of your book, actually.
Right.
And, I'm one of those people. Before I read your book, I was doing what you suggested, although if I'd had your book, I would have not made as many missteps, I'm sure. But I left the corporate world and started my own business and so forth. So central to your book is this idea of drivers. And once you understand what your drivers are, that helps you sort of figure out what you want to do next, right? Can you talk to that a little bit, Jeri?
When, as you said, Dr. Jen, when it was this idea, and I'm going to say a lot of us get ideas. Not everybody runs with the idea. So I'm saying that to the audiences too, that, hey, if you got an idea, maybe you begin to play it out. How we did it was I said, I'm going to start to talk to people. So we had an agent in that, and I am from, New York City. And so I had friends who had written many books at that time. And she said, because you're not a doctor. And I wrote the book with my co-author, who's my husband also, Rick Miners. So we did a major piece of research. And we asked the question, why do you or did you work beyond the money? So we talked to pre- and post-retirees. And to make it statistically stable then, we were doing really thousands in a variety of different ways. That's an open-ended question. There was nothing else aligned with it. We got back 85 reasons of why people said they worked beyond the money. Now, some of those duplicated a little bit. Like people said, I want to have accomplishments.
Yeah.
I want to belong. I want to be creative. I want to make a difference. And then some people said, it's my identity. It's my ego. It's my self-worth. It's like, I like the prestige. I like the power. We put this all together. We, as the authors, don't care what your drivers are. And we chose the name drivers, although I think it is kind of something that's used in the world of psychology and that. But we wanted, because we want you to take action, so to us, drivers were a positive word. It's like your own DNA. It's your personal motivators. And we, really focused on this, and we have the 85 drivers listed in the book, but we work on the top 30 drivers that we heard most frequently. And we just said, Rick was really behind this. He said, it's a work work style kind of book, as you know already, but we want people to drill down. And the goal is to find your top 5 drivers, because this can help with career transition.
Yep.
This can even help at the beginning of your career. But boy, it really becomes important in this next act, whether you
Right.
call it future next act or whatever.
Yeah.
Know your top 5 drivers. They become like your honing device in a way, because they've stayed with you. They've been with you. And then people will go out, and this is what I've seen, they don't know themselves that well. People who have been in therapy are very good at knowing their drivers.
right,
And,
yeah.
you know, so, or if they've done a lot of the different kind of, tests, their ENTJ,
Yeah,
Myers-Briggs,
Myers-Briggs, yeah.
they've got a leg up. But the goal is then to take those drivers, know them, and begin to analyze and say, wow, why did the guy say I'm going to miss work? Because there were things going on in that workplace that really filled his soul,
Yeah.
that fulfilled him beyond the money. And then once you learn those, then you begin to take a look at your life, and you brought up the word, the interests. This is the pain part. A lot of people have focused so much on work. Guess what they don't have? They don't have a lot of interest.
Right.
And that's the connector part. You want me to keep talking? Or
Yeah,
you
no,
wanna-
look at us. We're on the edge of our seats. It's
Okay.
fascinating.
It is, Jeri.
This is the thing. And look, work is even crazier, more demanding in a lot of ways today, even though we've got remote. I mean, COVID did a lot of things, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It alerted some people to say, I definitely want to retire because I don't want to be in that workplace anymore. Others said, oh my gosh, I don't want to retire because I don't have anything else to do. Others said, uh-oh, how much time am I going to be spending with my partner?
Yeah.
So there were a lot
Yeah, there's a lot of introspection going on then. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, just by default,
Yeah.
it all happened.
Yeah.
But we show people because, when you focus, and especially being a baby boomer here too, and I can speak for Gen X, and I don't know for the rest, of all of our generations, but it's like, I just love to tell people right now, if you're looking ahead, if you're at that age 50 and maybe you even got your AARP notification, that's a moment to reflect right now and then say, do I have interests in my life?
Yeah.
Because maybe in X number of years when I'm thinking of retiring,
Yeah.
what am I going to do?
Yeah.
We go through exercises and we really show people how to go back to the beginning, things that turned you on when you were younger, but then all of a sudden, oh, I got married, the mortgage, business, work, and the kids, and they went by the wayside. Then I see people down here who honestly say, oh, I wish I would have learned bridge already. I wish I would have learned to golf. And particularly, I'm going to say this, I'm not picking on men, but
Yeah.
they don't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah,
You
yep.
got to be vulnerable
Yep.
to be a beginner to learn how to golf.
Yep.
And those are some of the things I'm seeing. So, yeah, Jen.
Well, Jeri, it's so helpful, your book, because once you identify your drivers, at least for me, then I thought, okay, now next I'm going to do this. And then next I'm going to do this. It wasn't like, okay, I have to figure all this out on my own by myself. You literally walk us through a very gentle process. And even though we're being vulnerable, no one's watching. No one's listening. We're at our desk in our home. Like it can, and you just make it palatable.
Oh,
You really do. This book is wonderful. Wonderful
you.
for that.
I see a lot of opportunity for you in this book. No, I'm not kidding. Like go to corporations and start talking to
I
the
know.
people who are 10 years out, 5 years out, 4
Oh,
years out, and start giving them the
yes.
tools that they need. Or, and this is true for people, for spouses who are retiring at the same time. I want to golf, but she wants to do something else. Like, how do you bridge all of that gap? You know what I mean? So,
Well, I guess I better say the first edition, came out in 2002. The second edition in 2007, and why there was a second edition is with all the work on the road. I could see that couples, they were not. They were totally on different paths, and that was it. And then the third edition came out in 2018. So I am first very proud that this book has this kind of sustainability, and it's an evergreen because it's about us. It's about our DNA, our drivers, and that. And life is about ages and stages. So it's never too early, and it is definitely never too late. But that's why we wanted to give people a process, because it's not a slam dunk, and boy, it's not easy. And a lot of the work I did with corporations, especially with partnerships, we've even done work kind of with the Pentagon, with the military, four-star.
Interesting.
Oh yeah,
good.
so right, and in Dubai too. I mean, that was an interesting. It's even taken us to Saudi Arabia and done. Because everybody, and people say, oh, it's all about the money. No, it's not. I have met some of the wealthiest, unhappy people.
Yeah.
And so, no, it's not. It really goes back to you first. One of the things we did in the third edition, we added values. See, we had never taken that on in the first two editions, but I could see through all my live audience work and everything like that, that was coming in. And you have to know, like, what you value.
Yeah.
And I kept hearing about grandparenting, and of course you value the family, but then people said, but this is my time now,
And it's not enough. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's not enough. And how do you do it? So I love it when people say, gosh, you're practical, you're tactical.
Yeah.
And it's why we also follow the 4 people through the book. Because you want to show the ups and the downs, and it's not there's not all the answers at the end. You won't say, "Wow, I can't believe that they ended up doing that." There's not a mystery here,
Yeah.
but in a way, it's our mysteries to work through all of this. So
Yeah.
I like hearing that. Thanks.
Yeah,
You're
fantastic.
welcome. You're welcome.
How do you think retirement is considered in younger generations? I mean, do people think differently about retirement than the way we did? Do you think? What are you finding
I
from your
am
younger audiences?
trying to track that right now. And,
Okay.
and what we have to say kind of are the younger too, because I think there's so many different, generations going on. None of us who work in kind of what I call the aging space, we're not sure what it's going to look like for them, because they've already had these cyclical models, which we didn't have. You worked, you got out of corporate, and then you started your own. Now you got 22-year-old, billionaires birthing.
Yeah.
So, when reading the news this morning, so I'm thinking, how is this going to work for them?
Yeah.
Look, I think it's going to, I've heard a lot of people right now say, when I'm going to be done, Jeri, I'm going to be done. And that is a bit of a different model, because I think they're just getting so burned out, the demands. But the thing that concerns me too is I'm getting calls from people now, who maybe their children are going to be affected by AI. They're getting thrown into states of transition long before I think boomers and even the older of the Gen X did. And certainly the silent generation, our parents didn't. So you've still got to be doing all the saving, and then we're definitely seeing some who are turning into complete savers because they've seen their parents get burnt.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's this concept called FIRE.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it?
Freedom in retirement. Something.
Right. And let's see, finance, early retire. And
Yeah.
and that is a huge, and I've done a little bit of work with them, and I was kind of surprised at their model.
Yeah.
But it's to your point, this is a lot of time we're also talking about here. And, rewiring, why do we take up that word? We're not saying don't retire from what you did, but we're saying stay in the game.
Yeah.
How you choose to define that game. And if you want to open up another business, if you want to do whatever, if it's volunteer, it doesn't matter. But it's the cognition. You've got to keep using, your brain. And I think where this first came on the screen were those very early Microsoft millionaires. Mm-hmm. And that's when we saw people at age 40, all of a sudden, having an abundance of wealth they weren't expecting at that, point in time. That was really a trigger, like, whoa, what's going to be going on here? And the second one was when IBM did that initial downsizing in the early 1980s, and I think they went from something like 435,000 employees down to 210, but many of those people had only worked at IBM.
Yeah.
That was like a major divorce.
Yeah.
That wasn't just a downsizing. That's what made us realize the emotional part of this thing called retirement. So there are many moving parts and components to all this. In knowing yourself, at least we feel the drivers are an easier way to begin to know it. Like somebody will say, I'm a problem solver. And he goes, that's what I'm going to miss. And I said, so it means you've got to think of something in the future where, and the problem solving, it is not, this true story, rearranging the kitchen drawers. We cite this in the book. That is not it. If you feel you need that problem solving, you do it from philanthropy, you start your own foundation, you go to work. But if you feel like you need a problem to solve, you better find that problem. That's deserving to you. That's the other thing.
You know, Jeri, also the young people of today, I would imagine AI is providing an unstable foundation for them because you could be in a job and the next thing you know, you're being replaced by AI, which is currently going on with Amazon and some other companies. So they don't feel the foundation of working for Microsoft or another company for 20, 30, 50 years, General Motors, whatever it was. And now this AI, it's just a huge variable in their lives. And so from what I'm hearing you say, they want to stockpile their eggs or their nuts, I guess you'd say. Squirrels don't stockpile eggs; they stockpile nuts.
You're
so
mixing.
they want to stockpile the. I'll get to the chicken, but they want to stockpile the nuts because they don't know what's coming. And like you said, they saw their parents with things happen with them.
Right. And someone, depending upon ages, that could have seen their parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be a total of 5 generations out there in the workforce, too. So there is no employee contract anymore. I mean, that is long gone. Those days of being at a corporation are long gone as well. People will say, I'm feeling betrayed because I thought that I was in a good place. Then you have parents. So now you have parents who are worrying about their children, helping out their children. We know kids moving back home, that happened before, but that is now impacting also people who are retired. And why some of them have said to me, wow, I wasn't expecting a child going through divorce coming home. I didn't think we would be financially paying, for this. So that's also affecting that current retiree who said, wait a minute, this is my time. And now they're finding their rewiring is being encroached upon. And of course, their values, they love their family, they want to be there. So that's what I mean about, and I'm not a shrink, so I can only go so far, but I do try to bring these things on the screen. Also, if you're feeling it, guess what? Maybe your friend is too, but nobody really wants to talk about it. The book gives you a little bit of permission. That's why I love doing the podcast. Thank you so much. But also different kind of book groups and things like that. Corporations, it would be wonderful. I had done this at the beginning, but corporations don't necessarily feel it is
care that much anymore.
It's their responsibility.
Jeri, I smell another book on the horizon for you.
At least 2.
I know, I'm always percolating
I'm telling you, that is,
I know.
that would be wonderful.
But so thank goodness there are different, coaches, younger and that, who are close. I don't even have children, so I can't relate to some of this first line. But I am concerned. I care how you ended my bio and saying people are my passion, and now to me it's people at all ages too. I'm feeling some of their pain, and I would love to help.
I know.
Them.
I think you're going to be rewired until you turn 100.
Well, you know what? I'm beginning to wonder about this now. Maybe it is in my blood.
It is, for sure. Good for all of us that it is. I have to say.
Absolutely.
I want to turn to Working Woman for a minute if we can, but I also believe this is a whole nother podcast. We'll have you come back. But I loved that magazine when I was, working in corporations. I used to subscribe to it. Can you tell a little bit about how that got started, how long you were in business, and why it's no longer...
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I guess a few, stories in that. So I joined then in the mid-'80s on that, and it was a woman, I think, who had been at a magazine that people are not going to even remember, but it was Family Circle. I think, if anything, we remember our moms.
Sure.
Our moms would have it
Good
there.
Housekeeping Seal and Family Circle.
And those were called the Seven Sisters. So there, that gives you a different sense. First, magazines. I mean, the magazine business today has gone through changes. Then you had something that you could support 7 of these, magazines and everything like that. But it was a woman who was there. I'm going to recall her name was, I think, Beatrice Baxter or something like that. She had initially started this magazine called Working Woman because she really felt that, okay, women were beginning to break into, the workforce and that. And I think we're all younger than what I'm going to call that original women's movement and the Betty Friedan. We certainly knew about it and were the beneficiaries here.
Certainly the beneficiaries.
So I had been actually advertising manager at Avon. At the time in corporate America, and Avon was, just fabulous, company and that. And so in advertising, I would always be, placing ads in that. And this one came in, it was Working Woman. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was really my first exposure to it. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this magazine is fabulous. And I was thinking, I think I would really love to go into sales. So I took a look. Working Woman was one of them. And then wonderful Vogue. And remember, those were all the Condé Nast magazines and that. But I thought, wow, to be able to get paid to do something that is like, chalk up one for women. And that's the way it was, because when I joined, they had just had a segment on a TV show, Phil Donahue, if you remember that one of women's greatest fears were becoming bag ladies. So this still is an underground. I mean, boy, to do a talk on the past, because I bet you right now that there are going to be women shaking their head and saying, yes, I remember this. Well, when I joined, that was the beginning of the birth of us getting advertising from the business equipment categories. And who was the number one? IBM was there, but the second my account was Xerox. There were certain companies that were just ahead of the game. Yeah. And then there were other organizations who remain nameless, but they said, well, if we advertise with you and we have little calculators, do they need to be in pink? Think of how far we have, come and all of this. So Working Woman was it was absolutely fabulous. We, had to have all of the areas. You still had your beauty and your style and everything, but the man that owned Working Woman also owned Working Mother magazine.
Oh, okay.
And that was another really a challenge too, and then he acquired Sassy magazine.
I remember Sassy.
Out of, Australia. And then Ms. magazine.
I remember Ms.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then McCall's.
Unbelievable.
So we really covered all of the different types of women. It was a hoot, because if you go in the ladies' room, somebody would be pregnant. Oh, she works at Working Mother, like that. Yeah. Somebody would have a nose ring like at that. Oh, she's over at Say. I mean, it was amazing to do that. But then it's things really evolved in a way. So Working Mother still exists because you're out there. Working Woman, though, there was another sister organization called Savvy magazine. And Savvy didn't make it. And you don't want to be the only book in a category. Because then people, would say, well, if the working woman is so important, why isn't she reading Fortune Forbes? And we said, well, look, she is, but this is her book too. So I know a lot of us look back now as, editors and that, and we'll say we should have bought it.
Yeah.
We should have, but the woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, we all have
but
that, right.
The joy I have now is when people say, you profiled me in the magazine, or I used to read it. Sometimes I wonder if it still existed. Might we as a magazine have been able to maybe stave off some of the Me Too things of a few years ago? I don't know. That's a big question.
It is a big question.
It'll never be answered.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right, though. That would have helped for sure.
Yeah, it just would have put some of the things, really on the screen.
Yeah.
So that's why now, and then I will just say, to show how things were so different, we wanted to launch it in the UK and did focus groups over there. And the structure of the systems are so different. When they saw the name Working Woman, they basically said, you might as well call it Char Woman. because to them it was such a like a class structure that the working woman, whereas we took pride, and I can't speak for you guys, but I used to wear my stock bow tie and my the gray flannel. I mean, we were like the little men, so we blended in. You would never wear a bright color, and I think that's what's so unique for the younger women of today. However we define where they anything goes, and so it's not like we're saying you should see in our day, but I think we're not at critical mass yet. Let's face it, Fortune 500, I think we have, 33, 34, 35 female CEOs?
I know, it's way lower than it should be. You're right.
But look at how far we've come.
That's the right attitude.
How far we've come. This is amazing to me.
It is. And the entrepreneurship and everything.
The leadership, the entrepreneurship. Jeri, how did you transition, or when or why did you transition from the magazine realm? Did you do the book realm with the magazine realm?
I'm going to step back and say, so I really started all this I am a motivational speaker. And I didn't realize, and that's what I'll say to audiences, we have gifts that sometimes we don't see them. We don't realize them. If I look back, in my past, even as a, the 5-year-old saying, kids, let's get together now, I mean.
Controlling the playground.
And some of that, and doing these things. But it was one day when I was at Avon, and, when people think of Avon, every 2 weeks, the Avon brochure and everything like that, and I was doing a presentation, and somebody called me afterward, and she said, where were you trained? And I said, trained for what? And she said, the speaking. That was something I just thought just came with the person. And then I realized the power of one's voice. I had wanted to be a psychiatrist, but my dad was the one who said, oh, Jeri, I think you're a softie. I don't know if this is exactly, and now I feel I get to almost play the part.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing great.
But I know as my friends who are in the medical field say, your boundaries, Jeri. So it was really the voice, because I had then a boss who said, well, would you start doing more of the presentation? So as a mentor, kind of getting pushed into certain roles and seeing it. And then I do love the power of magazines and the written word. So then going to Working Woman and then becoming editor at large. And Large was not the writer for the magazine, but it was the one who traveled the country bringing all this to life. Because this is when we had the words, women breaking the glass ceiling, flex time. A lot of these things, really being tried. And so that's when corporations would, bring me in and motivating women and the empowerment and going for it. So I will always be thrilled to say I was able to catch that piece. And then our first book that really came out was called On Target, Enhance Your Life and Ensure Your Success. And that's when the motivational speaking and the writing and everything truly came together. So we were talking the other day that men sometimes have more of a straight line. And somebody said women zigzag more. But I've always stayed and known that I'm a communicator. So I've always had my area of expertise. There were just different buckets within that area. That's why I feel at this life stage for people, you can go back to things you did before. Maybe you're not going to become the ballet dancer, but it's an interest that you might have today that you can still do something within that area. Or that's what I'm excited about, because there are so many different podcasts and blogs today on that person over 55, over 60, who are exploring new things. And I love the man who said, I'm thinking about going back to get my master's in history. And I said, I think that's great. And his friend, he's 72, and his friend said, why would you do that? When you get done, you could be 74, 75. And he said, I'm still going to be 74, 75. Now I'm going to have my master's in history.
Right.
Yeah.
And he had gone to work in banking, and he'd given up, but he realized he was still chomping.
Yeah.
He still wanted it. And that's what I love when you said about the book. You're reading it on your own time, in your own space. And I always say, get that notepad, get that journal. And I advocate to people too, don't sit in your own home to think about the future. Get over to the coffee shop, start whatever. Go into a different and just allow yourself to think.
Yeah.
And don't allow the distractors to come in. They're always going to be there. But I don't want people to go to the grave with their to-do list in their hand.
Yeah.
I just thought this book is a retirement rewirement meditation.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
I like
book
it.
it really is
Thank
a
you.
meditation of sorts.
Yeah. We talk a lot about getting quiet in this podcast and listening to your inner self, and that's exactly
Yeah.
what you're just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't do this, though. As somebody said, I hear you talking to me, but I'm not letting you
Oh,
in. And I
no.
said, well, I think you're defeating your own purpose
Yeah.
because sometimes you do get scared. Could I do it? Could I find a way to do it? Well, live with it. Don't just go off, half on this, but think about it. And also, don't tell people that you think are your energy zappers. And the
Oh,
sad
God,
part
yeah.
is
No,
you could
they'll pull
even
the
be
wings off your
living.
idea.
You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
And there are toxic people, and sometimes they could be closer to your space than you realize.
Yeah.
Find your own little group to say, could I share this with you? And but feel good inside
Right.
already. Don't turn to other people because then they'll say, oh, you should think about this, this, and this. And then you get whittled
just
down.
do it. Yeah. And
Right.
explain
Live-
later.
And
Yeah.
write it down and come back a week later, 2 weeks later, and look at it again. Because this is a life stage where you should do. I hate the word should. I always say,
Shoulda, shoulda, shoulda.
I know, and I say once you turn 50, get rid of the word should. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it.
And you have to be mindful, like time is ticking here.
You got
like,
it.
do it now because there's
Yeah.
no more tomorrows,
And that's
really.
it.
Yeah.
At the end, mindfulness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
other thing I love about this concept, I'll be honest with you, is there's not one plan. This book has a zillion different ways it could
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
So everybody can have their customizable rewirement.
Right. It's not the book that has a zillion ways. We
The
do.
people.
The person.
people.
But you
That's
give it
it.
the construct
Yeah.
to allow
Right,
us to think
the
about
framework.
it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that was really the goal. So, because I do think people, they need things to help. We
Yeah.
all do. We need the tactics, the tips, the tools, and that's what we were hoping to do.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. What do you do with the person that says basically, yeah. Oh, sounds great. Oh, yeah. Drivers, but they keep coming back to, but I got to have X number of dollars. I got to have X number of dollars.
Well,
What do you do with that person?
Right. Okay, but that's at a certain life stage too. And if you're saying I need X number, then that's somebody who still has to stay in the workforce then. There's a difference between have to and want to, right? So that's one of the first questions I'll always say. Are we still building our, portfolio on that? You can still say know your drivers then. So when you are out, in a job search and hunting, you have a sense of, because after you know your drivers, the next part of the book too, we really take you through where you got the fulfillment of those drivers from. So there are, the 5 steps in the book, and they are pretty doggone clear in each chapter in 10 steps.
Right.
So that person would say, I hated this part of my job. And I say, then don't be looking for that in your next job. If you have to make money, it isn't just about the money. We want you to come as close to fulfillment as you can, but that's why those drivers can be so useful. And I think it's why grandparents have given the book out to their graduating grandchildren.
What a great
And I
idea.
said, well, and this was something that came up, we got to know, this was several years ago from the University of Pennsylvania bookstore. And they said the book was being given to seniors. And I said,
Fantastic.
seniors of what? I was like,
Senior
are we
citizens.
talking right, senior? And they said graduating seniors because grandparents are saying if those kids knew those drivers going out of the gate. Now, this
Yeah.
was several years back now, and things I think are different there too. But knowing yourself in self-awareness is just the most important thing because then you can say, It's why I took this job, maybe in the arts. You may not make as much as that person who's in, this, finance or whatever. But if this is your love and passion, then own it. You made that choice. You can't go back after, oh, I should have gone onto Wall Street. If it didn't turn you on,
Yeah.
Let it go.
that's it. And
Let it
that's where
go.
I think parents and grandparents have to give good messages to those kids too, because of course money is important, but it is not everything.
Yeah.
And we've seen people make major mistakes there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Lose themselves, but have a nice bank account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you keep track of the people in your book. So you go back every couple of years and check and see how they're doing. And
Yes.
Yeah.
And I myself was surprised on decisions, but that was one of the first things I realized, that people can change. New input, it's not flip flop, it's just making you smarter.
Yeah.
And then there are, and if Rick were here now, his line, and we don't have it in the book, but we would say now, first you can rewire as many times as you want. And the future is about ages and stages.
yeah.
So if I could just say a word or two now, when people will say, one of these days I'm going to, and that person may be like 77 right now, say, I'm going to walk the Great Wall of China. And I said, you better get out there and do it sooner. Do your heavy lifting travel earlier, because things can happen in life. Your own health,
Right. You get physically infirm. You can't really do the walk anymore. Yeah.
a partner's health, family, needs and that. But it is about the ages and stages. And, we're seeing it a little bit now, too. This is one of the biggest things. A lot of us working in this space, we're part, of the White House Conference on Aging back in the early 2000s. Everybody told us that they were going to do volunteer work. It was amazing. Volunteering today has definitely gone through changes. COVID impacted it because many people couldn't, okay. A lot of volunteering still through your religious community, churches, synagogues. However, now we're seeing a lot of people, if they do volunteer, they want a co-chair. I don't want the full responsibility.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want the whole thing. I don't want that responsibility. And it isn't just the social justices. It isn't just the diseases, as I call it, it isn't all of the tough things. People are saying now, I may be volunteering in my women's club, whatever, setting up things that are fun and creating engagement for others. Because engagement and community are really the key words, too, for rewiring. So you're right. There are many pieces to this.
I'm telling you, there's a lot
There's
going on
many
there,
more
Jeri.
that
Yeah,
even
no,
in,
way
when
more.
we wrote this initial book. You're right.
It's amazing. It's just, and Jeri, tell me again, why do people want the co-chair? Why do they?
Oh, because they don't want the full responsibility. They also want the freedom to travel.
But why do you think that is? They don't want the full responsibility. They just want something lighter?
Yeah, some of us will say been there, done it.
Okay.
But on the other hand, there are some who want the full responsibility.
Yeah, because they need the power.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to be careful of too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people will say, whoa, they had a big job, and they're using this volunteer as a replacement.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up, Susan, because that is, and people have said, oh my gosh, we got the person, but they're treating it like boom, boom, boom.
It could be trouble for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So that's why I think boards have to really reflect, that we don't need seat warmers.
Right.
We
Right.
really need people responsible and from a philanthropic too, bringing in younger generations to understand the importance of philanthropy and giving, because a lot of that with stewardship and development and advancement, whatever we call it, has also been tied in if you had a religious community that you gave to.
Yeah.
And if people would say, oh, I remember the envelope or the high hop. Okay.
Sure.
If you don't have that anymore, you have people coming into this and are not understanding the importance of philanthropy and giving. It's like, well, can't the country? No, this is not Europe and the, yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. And I think that's how I think boomers and some of the older of the Gen X now, who are really at age 60, can help.
Believe. Well, hard to believe.
That's
Gen Xers are 60 already?
Yeah, that's the, yeah.
I didn't hear it, Susan. Don't worry.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. I mean, that's the gulp. I mean, that's what you say. How did this happen? How did this get here?
Yeah.
And that's when people will still say, kind of to your point, well, I still have more to do. That's why the book is so good too. It gets you to stop and think. And on some things you'll say, you know what, that sounded like a good idea then, but maybe something else can come through now. And it is, and I know your podcasts do that. It's about the reflection and taking the time and kind of that free form and, kind of creating your own, as we said, the girlfriends here today, but your own kind of kitchen cabinet, as we call it, of trusted friends that, are going to be honest when they say, whoa, I think you're off on that one, Jeri. But others to say, why don't you take it through a little bit more? And maybe you do have something there, versus the others. Oh, that's ridiculous. Why should you be able to do it? Remember, there are people who do not want to see you successful again.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Energy vampires.
That's a good one.
That's a good
Perfect
term.
for today,
Perfect
for
today.
Halloween.
Well, we can thank social media for that one.
Oh, really?
Jeri, there's a cute story about how the book was named. Can you tell that story? And then tell folks where they can find the book.
Oh, okay. So when we're working on the idea and as I said earlier, living in New York City, and that it doesn't even exist anymore, Tower Records. I mean, people would be like, records? What's a record? And there was a huge poster of Tony Bennett with K.D. Lang. And that's when they started doing the duet albums. And here you have Tony of one generation, K.D., of another. Fantastic. And that's a smart thing, too. Partnerships are really good for all of this. And I said, wow, something like, Tony's really wired for action. And Rick said, wow, he's been rewired. And all of a sudden, we stood there, we looked at each other, we were like, don't retire, rewire! Exclamation point. And, very, often when you're working, with your publishers, and, we're with a division of Penguin, and that, they'll change things. And that was what was great, because then rewiring is really taking the energy that's running through your veins and putting it into new things. Now, rewiring is also part of the brain and for the neurons, which is very important, as well. But that's what I love. We wanted to give a new word, but we knew a new word has to ease into the lexicon. So now people will send me things and they'll say, Jeri, somebody's using your word rewired. And I said, you know what? It's like Kleenex.
Yeah.
And there's a joy to me in that too.
Of course.
That long after I'm gone, maybe people will say, hey, the rewiring is, going on. The book, I will say, is on Amazon still. And I say that because very rarely do you have a non-fiction book that's got this kind of longevity. But as I said, you'll find it's just as relevant today as when we wrote the book, because it's about us. It's for, when I say us, the reader, the individual. Right. But it's also an inexpensive way to have a therapy session with yourself.
Yep.
And that is, for whatever the price is on Amazon, which is like $20 or under or something like that, it's probably the best investment. In fact, everybody for Thanksgiving, to show just gratitude, give a gift to yourself and say, when am I finally going to do this? Because, as I said, I don't want people will say, well, one day. I'll go, you just had a 75th birthday. This is the one day.
Today is the day.
This is it. Go for it, And another motivator, I will never forget this, had done something like years ago, kind of the Oprah, show on that. And when it said, this could be like the tombstone. And, here lies Jeri Sedlar. She lived a fulfilled life. And I'll never forget saying, what would give me a fulfilled life?
Yeah.
The word is an adjective or whatever. And that's the beginning. That's why fulfillment is such a big part of this book.
Yeah.
It's what we do in our life in the components that make it fulfilling. And that's, when people say, I'm so busy, I'm like, I don't care how busy you are. The busy bee, and my gosh, wherever you live, there's always things to do. But now I'm hearing people say busy, and I will say, I've noticed a few people saying, I'm getting kind of bored.
I have a title for your new book.
Okay.
What do you want your tombstone to say?
Oh, yeah.
Rewire your tombstone.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I could get sponsored by, a cemetery or a funeral home.
But it's so true, because why are you going to be at the end of the day?
It's
Like,
true.
what do you want people to know you for? That's fantastic.
It's really true. Oh, you guys have been
Oh my
great.
gosh,
This has
we
just
learned
been-
so
I mean,
much today.
My
You've got
head
to come
is
back.
spinning. It's
I
spinning
know.
over
No,
here.
You're going to be like our monthly guest or something. We'll have to figure that out.
No, it really is.
It's fun.
The way we did it today, too, made me realize, like, wow, so much has changed.
Yeah.
And so much has changed stayed the same.
Yeah.
But what I will say is people do not think about this until they get into the situation. When sometimes they begin to feel a little bit of pain, or, you don't go into your financial advisor the day before and go, so how much money do I have? Why do we leave the lifestyle part of our life? We focus more on where we're going to live as opposed to what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Things we take for granted.
And that's it until they're gone.
Right.
And that's how we go back to the beginning. When he came into the office and he looked around and said, I've been complaining about all this. And then it's gone, and it's going to be an ouch.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. We try to prevent the ouches. You shouldn't have to go through the pain.
Yeah.
Make yourself a little wiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating discussion today.
Jerry,
Oh,
I can't
thank you
thank
for
you
coming
enough.
on.
This
I've
is
enjoyed
great.
it.
This is great. Our whole premise of this podcast is to raise people up, lift people up, especially women, but all people. And our conversation with you today has done exactly that. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. We'll
I
definitely
loved
have
it.
you
Thank
back.
you
It was
so
great
much.
fun.
I loved it. Thanks, guys.
We thank you for listening and hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please share this show with friends and family and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This way, you'll never miss weekly drops. Stay strong, dream big, and floss your teeth.